It's a contradiction. They're not saying the same thing. One of them is telling the truth, one of them is not.
Discrepancies, conflicting accounts. This is now part of the Nolan Wells investigation. You're going to hear people ask whether someone is lying, which is very fair given the reporting. It's time to review the questions and the contradictions related to the case of Nolan Wells' death. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. I think it's time to list out all the apparent contradictions, the unanswered questions in the Nolan Wells death investigation, the discrepancies that we're seeing. I just wanted to condense it all so you have it all here to make sense of it. Is someone lying? Is anyone lying? Who would be lying? What's not adding up? Now, we're not going to make accusations that people aren't telling the truth, but what we're going to try to do here is show you the difference of opinion, the different narrative.
No foul play was suspected. Those words came from the Jackson County coroner. They were issued before an autopsy was performed, before the toxicology results came back, before the phone was examined, before anyone asked the witnesses a single formal question. It was a conclusion without an investigation, a verdict without a trial. And for the family of Nolan Wells, it was the moment they realized something was very, very wrong. Picture this. An 18-year-old vanishes from a remote barrier island. His body washes up days later. His phone and keys are found with friends who left without him. And the official response? No foul play. It's like finding a crime scene and declaring it accident before checking for fingerprints.
His group of friends on their boat that day. His family reported him missing the night of July 4th after receiving a phone call at around 11 p.m. from one of his friends. So again, the report came in, late July 4th, early July 5th. His body was found on the island that Monday, July 6th, washed ashore. His family is demanding transparency. They are demanding a full investigation, a thorough investigation.
That's the visual anchor you need to hold on to, because everything that follows is a fight for the truth.
That her son said that. Her son was apparently with all them that day. And also confirmed that the boys had taken off because of boat trouble, which we're going to talk about, and that seems to be true. I'm going to explain that in a minute. But the Jackson County Sheriff's Office said that it believes Nolan stayed on the island. ABC News is reporting that one of Nolan's purported friends, Trayston Shepard...
Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Project Cold Case, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Nolan Wells was a college football player, an 18-year-old receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College. His coach described him as salt of the earth. On July 4th, 2026, he went to Horn Island with friends. The island is only accessible by boat, no roads, no cell towers, no witnesses except the people who were there. The group arrived around 11:15 a.m. They spent hours swimming and celebrating. But at approximately 3 p.m., the story fractures. The friends say Nolan stayed behind to talk to a girl. The girl says Nolan told her he was leaving to get back on his friend's boat. Those two statements cannot both be true.
According to accounts from NBC News and the New York Post, it appears that boat likely had 7 people on board. The boat was having trouble at around 4 p.m. The boat operator reportedly said, "Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn and our bilge pump stopped working. I want to get this boat unsank and towed back." So the boat was reportedly towed for 3 miles, picked up speed less than an hour later. But look, that still raises a question, right? It raises a question about Nolan's whereabouts. It also creates a discrepancy in the
boat left Horn Island at 4:31 p.m. It didn't arrive back on the mainland until 6:06 p.m. Then it was moved again, finally docking at 7:19 p.m.
Everybody on board? Was Nolan on board? Probably not, based on the timeline, though maybe saying everybody on board is just saying, yeah, everybody's on board. I'm not saying.
That's over 3 hours between Nolan's last confirmed sighting and the boat returning to port. 3 hours for stories to be aligned, 3 hours for phones to be handled, 3 hours for evidence to be altered.
They say they obtained via records request. And according to the reporting, the vessel apparently left the dock at approximately 9:56 that morning, arrived at Horn Island at 11:14. According to GPS data, the boat left Horn Island at 4:31 that afternoon, returned to its original departure dock, and then traveled into...
The missing data becomes a silent witness. Digital forensics can recover what has been deleted. Experts can extract information even after it's wiped. And there is a key development. Ben Crump, the family's attorney, announced that when the phone is examined, his experts will be present alongside law enforcement. Both sides will see the same evidence at the same time. That is not standard procedure. That is a concession. The family does not trust the official investigation. The body was discovered on July the 6th by a park ranger at 8:45 a.m. It was found on the northwest tip of Horn Island. The coroner immediately announced no obvious signs of trauma, no foul play suspected.
Traveled into Fort Bayou at around 5:52 before returning to the dock at 6:06. Later that evening, the boat went to the Fort Bayou boat launch at 7:19, traveled overland, which would suggest it was towed by a vehicle to the owner's residence. So to put that into perspective and why it matters, Ben Crump claims Nolan was last seen on the island at 3 p.m. Again, according to Ashley Cole, the mother, her son, right? She's a local judge, by the way.
That statement came before the autopsy, before the toxicology, before the independent investigation.
There is a video circulating on social media on or near Horn Island in which he seemed to claim that Nolan might be heard, that he might be heard saying, quote, "Give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing?" During a press conference, when he was asked,
the words "no foul play" became a refrain.
No.
They were repeated by the governor. They were repeated by law enforcement. But what does no foul play mean when you haven't interviewed all the witnesses, when you haven't examined the digital evidence, when you haven't determined where Nolan died? 3 hours can rewrite a narrative, but it cannot erase the truth. The family hired Ben Crump.
By suicide, you could drown by homicide. So we might, at the end of the day, have all the facts in and still not have an answer that satisfies the grieving family or other people that are concerned about what happened.
Because the forensic evidence wouldn't be so...
If these two autopsies do not match up, if the results are inconsistent, that's going to be an issue. Ben Crump told Don Lemon that the independent autopsy will find out if he had any physical injuries to his body beyond drowning. The phone is the physical object that could break this case open. It is a small device, but it now carries the weight of a grand jury referral, an FBI-assisted threat investigation, and a mother's last hope. At the July 15th press conference, both sides agreed to a joint inspection. Experts for the family and experts for the state would examine the device together. As of this recording, that inspection has not yet taken place.
So clear to suggest how someone drowned, right? I mean, how could you show, unless there was some sort of blunt force trauma or some sort of evidence of, he was held down or pushed in the water or something like that, it'd be really hard to know.
Exactly. And even if there are some injuries to his body, depending on the injuries, they could be something caused by another person or caused by a
Additional potential witnesses may be identified besides the group of friends that went to the island with Mr. Wells. Those interviews may take additional days and weeks. They're probably going to be re-interviews as they gain information from one person that requires them to go back and clarify or confirm information with somebody they've already talked to. Waiting is a weapon. The longer the phone sits unexamined, the longer the contradiction between accounts remains unresolved. The more time there is for the truth to settle into a convenient shape. And for a family with almost nothing else left to hold on to, the phone has become one of the only tangible pieces of evidence they have.
Doing his normal runs in the morning, but also, too, given the situation, I'm sure they were a little more hyper-aware and probably a little more head on a swivel on the island, knowing what happened and what was going on. But, yeah, I was told that it was about 8:45 when a ranger called
Shepard indicated that he and his friend group have been receiving death threats since Nolan was found, that he wanted to speak out to clear up any misinformation, stating that neither he nor his friend group had anything to do with Nolan's death. There has been a concerted effort to clean up the narrative. A photograph circulated online, supposedly taken after the 4th of July. It was not.
Is that authorities with the Jackson County Sheriff's Department and other agencies have initially said they don't suspect foul play. There's a question, is it too early to say that? Why did they say that? Look, the sheriff seemed to indicate that Wells' body did not have homicidal trauma, that it seems like drowning. But he also said that
Shepard even says Nolan isn't in the video. He said, "That's me yelling." There was no talk about a phone in that video. Nolan wasn't on the island. Shepard says that this was a fight with a stranger. Shepard told Rolling Stone, "Those were not Nolan's words. They were mine. I get that everybody wants justice for Nolan. Everybody wants to know exactly what happened." Misinformation stripped away. What remains is the raw data. The unresolved contradiction between the accounts given by those who were on the boat that day and the timeline tracked by the state. The family has not received answers. They have received
jury. It's not a
corrections.
guarantee that a grand jury would return an indictment. And by the way, we're not even saying that would be a homicide charge. Someone could potentially be charged with a crime that's unrelated specifically to Nolan's death. Tampering with evidence, lying to police. I'm not saying that that happened, but I'm just giving you something to consider as we talk about the possibility of a grand jury. Going back to Sheriff John Ledbetter, he told ABC, I think it's important we don't put ourselves on a timetable, that we don't rush ourselves, but I do think it's important to be diligent in gathering all the facts. That's what the family deserves. He's right. That is what the family deserves. But look, we don't know what happened to Nolan. We don't know what he did after 3 p.m. We don't know if he died in the water, on land, or on a boat. We don't know if anybody had a role or there's criminal culpability here. We don't know if his phone was tampered with. We don't know who's telling the truth or not. But what I do know is we're going to stay on top of this and see how this progresses. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. See you next time, everybody.